This Marathon teaser video was unlocked by completing an entire ARG campaign where we had to hack into government terminals and then realign a bunch of satellites on another web page and do a whole load of other stuff. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how all of that worked from beginning to end. There are chapter markers in the description if you want to click around, but it all started on April 3rd with the release of this tweet from the Marathon the Game account. In the video, you see these mysterious symbols scrolling around, but you also see a bracketed set of symbols that looks like this, and it's just a whole load of noise for the whole video. When this was tweeted, everyone in the Marathon community jumped onto the old Marathon ARG sites from a previous ARG in 2023 and started checking them to see if they had been updated. So this is an example, Sekaguchi Genetics, and they saw a bunch of new stuff on there, so they knew that there was a new ARG coming up. Similarly, this UESC site was found, and it's got a username password login, and there was also this one from the previous ARG called HereOurSilence.com. On here, you can see a lot of white, and then you see HTTP onevoicemany.hereoursilence.com. There's also two other things of note on this page. One is this skull that's hidden, and you can see it when you Control A, and the other is the scrolling text at the top of this, which we'll come back to in a moment. At the same time, this account was also found, and people knew it was real because DMG, the director of communications at Bungie, was following it, and it was tweeting out really weird stuff like this, which was mysterious and we'll come back to in a second. There was also the Traxxas.global site, which was used again in the 2023 ARG. This is what it looked like back then. And that updated to look like this, and it had two entries on this kind of weird circular menu. One was TraxSat Management Console, and the other was CB Drill. The drill looks like this. It's a design for a Cave Crawler V2, and it's just 15 pages of PDF. And the TraxSat Management Console looked like this, and you can see in the corner it said 0 out of 2000 DAC clients. There was a little drop box in the bottom right hand corner where you could potentially drop a DAC. And there were these satellites seemingly on this grid in the center. Finally, alongside all of that dump of information, the Marathon the Game account Twitter header, like the banner at the top of the page, changed to this. And as you can see here, that bracketed phrase of symbols was repeated once again. So it seemed like there might be some importance to that bracketed phrase. So my focus started with this new account, and specifically the weird puzzle PC type images that they were tweeting. So I assembled what those looked like with my friend DACcening, and this was the image that we got. It seems to be the Mida logo, and there didn't seem to be anything more hidden in there. But then the account tweeted, "Prepare to receive," and we got this really weird video. I'm going to play it in its entirety for you now.
This is a unified Earth Space Council secure transmission. Security clearance. Data. File. Key. Note, terminal log corrupted. Reference required for access. End of message.
So that was weird. Towards the start of the sound file, we had mention of file key, and then we had loads of weird noises. So we weren't sure what to do with that initially, but we had some other leads to chase up, so we'd come back to this in a moment. So we had this site that had updated. Where did this URL go, right? We haven't looked at that yet. Well, when you load it up, it looked like this. It says OBS breaks their chains, interact, login, live or live. The system fears when many become one, Mida is watching, Mida is rising, and you can authenticate your Twitch account. So Astacross was streaming and he did this, and it brought him to a page that looked a bit like this, except only the first couple of symbols were visible, and it very slowly was adding a symbol over time, one by one. Then down here in the corner, there was this number which seemed to align with Aztecross's view count because he was live streaming on Twitch. So he started calling other streamers in to also authorize their Twitch on this website to try and get the number to go up on this page. I did exactly that, and so I started contributing my viewers to the overall count, and it seemed like with a higher number, we started decoding all these new symbols faster. Now, this process took several hours to even get halfway, so in the meantime, the community started exploring some of its other leads. One of those leads was a new tweet from both the Mida and the Marathon accounts, which was this video, which I'm going to play for you in its entirety now. This is a pretty abstract video, so people tried to figure out a code inside it or something, but didn't have much luck. And so they moved on to one of the other leads, which I said we would come back to. So remember on here, I said that there was this weird scrolling text at the top. This is something that we can actually find the full text for in this page's source info. And if I pull that up here, you can see that in the function that determines what this text is, there's this text string. And if we copy that out so you can see what the full thing says, it looks like this. So there seem to be separations in phrases denoted by these dashes. It says truth is blade, sharp firm, carving lies, new path, own path, etc. And then towards the end of it, you notice this. It says hold the line, R plus A plus G plus E is the key sec key. So that instantly stood out to people because if we're being told a key, then maybe we can use that somewhere as a password or something. And this ended up being used in conjunction with another lead that we had. So remember this Traxxas menu page? Don't worry about all the extra entries. We'll talk about that much later in the video. In the bottom left-hand corner, there's this chat, and you can see basically a couple of devs having a conversation with each other. And one of the messages really stands out because they say, remind me, terminal access. Was it the hold key sequence during boot to enter? And this dev responds saying, yes, hold key sequence per usual for SIAC booting, then navigate to the system core. So where might we be able to use a hold key sequence to boot up a SIAC terminal? Well, this UESC login page happens to be a SIAC terminal. You can see down here, it says Cyber Acme Systems, which is SIAC. Specifically, it's for SIAC booting. So if we reboot this page and then hold down R, A, G, and E on our keyboard right now, there you go. The terminal opens just like it said it would in the chat. This terminal is full of information. So you can do ls, for example, to see what's in the directory that you're currently in. You can see there's loads of folders here. You can navigate to different folders using cd and then the folder name. So let's go into legislation, for example, and you have to make sure you've typed it correctly. Now I'm in legislation. Let's hit ls and see what comes up. Diplomacy, governance, and security. So there's loads to explore inside this terminal, but the problem was that when you'd find a lot of the text files, many of them were classified, and so there was only a limited selection initially that we could glean any information from. So people kept hunting through the folders and eventually going one more folder down here into cybersecurity, and then hitting ls again, you can see that there is a shell script in here. So that's basically a program that you can run. So if I run exec decrypt.sh, that will open this shell script, and you can see it says decrypt input, and I get a load of symbols. But remember before, I said that we saw a load of symbols in brackets on the new Twitter banner. That looked like this. Not only that, but Bungie even uploaded this Twitter banner to their press portal on their website so you could get a high-res version of it. And so naturally, people thought, okay, we'll just type in this code. I'm going to turn my camera off here just so you can see the full thing. So this is what it looks like when you've typed the whole thing out and you've just done it by clicking all these buttons. And then you hit decrypt and it says error. And it says key needed. It wasn't just this page with its scrolling banner at the top, but this video, remember, had also mentioned a key towards the start around 11 seconds.
File key.
File key. What we realized is that all of the sounds that played at the start of this file were unique. So you'll notice that this sound is different to this next sound. which is different to the next sound, etc. And there are 16 of them total. And so we thought, okay, 16 could represent hexadecimal, where your characters range from 0, which I've got listed here, all the way up to 9, and then they run from A to F. And that gives you 16. So if that's the case, what's the deal with the second half of the sound file? Well, quite simply, you just have to listen to this sound and then figure out where it is on literally our key that we've created here by labeling these 0 to 9 and A to F. Sounds like this. So that means that we're going to assume the first letter in a sequence here, encoded in sound, is 6. Then what's this next one? Okay, and what does that correspond to? Perfect. We're going to call it a B. If you type out the whole sequence, it looks like this. There's the 6B that we had. Remember, we said that we were working in hexadecimal. And so if you then do the conversion and you just click convert, you get a word. Key 34769-M. And this is great news because we're looking for a key, which is right here. So if we enter our key 34769-M and then it says success, decrypting, encryption complete, and it spits this out at you, /.farsight7. The /. is an indicator that this is actually a hidden directory. And so if we go back to the root folder in the terminal and we go cd for change directory /.farsight7 and we enter it, we can then do ls again and see what's inside. And there's this sound.bin. Let's run that. And this pops up. Now this thing is very weird. I've got the tab muted for now so that the sound doesn't distract us while we're just looking at it to begin with. But as you can see, if I scrub my mouse from left to right, it seems to scrub through the original Marathon teaser video. Like you might recognize some of the frames in here. And if I now unmute the site, depending on where my mouse is, you hear different sounds. There's a weird kind of sinusoidal sound here. And here, that sounds like a voice, right? Definitely sounds like a voice. So if we record that and then reverse it, it sounds like this. So those sound like words. It turns out they're actually words from this poem. Let's keep playing it here. And then at that point, the sound loops. So it's an excerpt of this Ozymandias poem. That's a detail that we didn't need to use at that present moment, although we didn't know that at the time, but we'll come back to it later. So we found the reversed Ozymandias poem down here in this bottom right-hand corner when you hovered your mouse there, but what else was on this page? Well, if you click around, you'll see, oh, I just caused a string of numbers to appear and they stay static even if I move my mouse. But they're not just numbers. Once again, you can see there's a letter there as well. And so this looks like hex once again. If you click around in other parts of the page, you can get other strings to appear. There's another. Gonna move my camera. There's another in the top right. And there should be one more just there. There we go. You don't have to be exact in your placement for these, but just these rough zones will do the trick. And so I mentioned that this looks like hex. If we go back to our hex to string converter and click convert, that translates into Discord. So are they talking about Discord like discordant or Discord as in the program? Well, if you translate all of them, they read Discord is the path forward. So people guessed that maybe we need to get to a Discord server. And if you click the strings here in that order, Discord is the path forward, this box pops up in the center of the screen. Now, yet again, this looks like hex, right? 46, 02, 5A, 6B. It looks like hex. And you can use one of these ASCII hex conversion charts to turn all of that hex into ASCII. When you do that, it looks like this grid here. And there's a special quirk worth noting about this. So when you convert hex to ASCII, if we start with 46, for example, which we have in the top left-hand corner of our grid, that in hex converted to ASCII is F. So that's fine. But then the next number is 02, 02. And in our table, if you look up 02 in hex, that's STX in ASCII? This is a character which a computer would interpret as start of text. That's what STX means. And you've got a bunch of these which are not just individual letters like A, B, C, D, E, but instead they'll mean things like BS or backspace. And so that's why in our little converted table here, we've got things like backspace, new line, tab, backspace again, because these are just all ASCII characters. So we have this table, but at this point in the ARG, people didn't know how to solve it. So we kind of got stuck there and moved back over to that symbol grid that was slowly decoding. And after several hours, we finally got this full grid decoded just by having myself and DACcening and a bunch of other streamers all getting online and getting our chats to boost this number up as high as we could. And then when the final symbol, that's this one here, decoded at long last, it flipped over to this screen. Okay, so it says +714, and in the bottom left it says Frontier. So people to start with were memeing that this was July 14th, and this was related to Destiny 2, and it was going to be the end of episode Heresy, and that Frontier was related to Frontiers, and DACcening was going especially hard with the memes, to the point that Maida had to tweet at him and say, "Stay on topic, DACcening," which I thought was so funny, that they were like, "Listen, boy, not now. Like, we're revealing a game here. Don't mess us about." It was very, very funny. So we had the +714, but we didn't know what to do with it. It was at that point that people got a little stuck, and Maida revealed a new clue for us the next day, which kind of hinted that the grid pattern was important and we needed to pay attention to STX, and O2 opens the door. O2 being the hex code for STX, which is the ASCII code for start of text. With the new Maida hint in mind, people got back to trying to crack the grid, and they realized that if you started at this second start point, that's the O2 just here, and you read it left to right, you'd first get a command for backspace, and if you applied that to this starting point, then backspace would move you one to the left. Then, if you go to a new line, that will bring you down one. Tab will bring you 8 characters to the right, because tabs are usually denominated by either 4 spaces or 8 spaces. So it's going to bring you 8 spaces to the right. Then backspace brings you to Z. Carriage return brings you to the start of the line. So that brings you back to T. New line here brings you to P. Tab again goes 8 spaces to G. Backspace goes to Z. Backspace then goes to 5. The next backspace down here goes to 5. And then new line goes down here to 8. If you list the order of the jumps that you just made, F, T, C, etc., in a string, it looks like this. And if you put that at the end of discord.gg/invite/, then you get a full Discord invite code. And that brought everyone to an official Marathon ARG Discord server, which to begin with looked like this. There were people saying, "How did we get this? Like, how are we here?" And spamming in this restricted feed chat. And people also noticed this account, Null Transmitter. Now, if you know anything about Discord, you'll know that you can search for a user's messages by typing from and then their name in the search bar in the top right. So people did that, and they found that Null Transmitter had posted this string of absolute junk characters in the Meta response channel that morning, way before anybody got into the channel. Then a little later, they posted it again after this guy just wrote the letter A in a message. Then a short time later, it said system instability detected, rebooting sequence. And then a short time later, it posted the string of absolute nonsense again. This went on several times. After the nonsense, 7 minutes would go by and then it would reboot. But as you can see here, the Awesome Taco again posted A and it reposted the message. This was about to lead to a breakthrough. So a little further down, a user called Zepoys posted the word and Null Transmitter again responded with its string of nonsense, but notice that now you can actually see the word and in its spam. Once people realized this, they started trying new words like the, and lo and behold, the word the then got responded, decoded as part of the message. But 7 minutes had gone by that point, so it rebooted and they had to start again. It was then that Torak made a connection, seemingly, which is that before we'd had that Ozymandias poem that was reversed on that page, and we hadn't used that information yet, so maybe we could try some words from the Ozymandias poem. And so they posted the whole thing here, and people started using words from the poem, like king. Lo and behold, the word king was found decoded inside the spam. And so people started to get the idea much faster at this point and started spamming words that they knew were in the poem. Now, there's an interesting quirk about what happened next. In this particular attempt at decoding it, people got really close. All of the words being decoded, apart from the final one, stretch far, and then it should be away. The problem is that there was all this spam still stuck onto the end of the message. And unfortunately, people weren't quick enough to give it the right word, and so it rebooted. So people started decoding once again, and they got to this certain point with all this random junk still at the end, where they made a guess of the final word, and they guessed it with the punctuation here, and that caused all of the extra junk to disappear. So it required this guy realizing that the punctuation seemingly was what was causing all of the junk to still be present. And so it was from that point that they were finally able to get a full translation of the poem. And moments later, the bot said, sequence completed, motivate, inspire, disrupt, agitate, begin, at everyone /DAC is the path forward. And it closed off the channel. So in hindsight, it makes perfect sense that meter response required us to read the meter of the poem, so to speak, and then respond back. And that sort of worked like a boss encounter to decode Ozymandias. So because we'd now been told /DAC is the path forward instead of Discord is the path forward, everyone started going into the restricted feed here, not the meter response channel, and typing in the chat saying /DAC like that and calling the DAC command. This null transmitter bot would think and then it wouldn't respond. And basically what happened here is the DACcening happened, where the bot broke instantaneously from all of the traffic. And so all of its commands that were supposed to be working, like the /contract command and the /pattern recognition command, all just didn't respond. Now, alongside /DAC, you could also look at some new contracts that had appeared. Each one has an image like this and a description above it and a numbered reward. So if the first one, you can see revolution needs numbers, eyes, voice. Bad pattern recognition required you to call the pattern recognition command and then give it a hidden code you found somewhere in the Discord. 10 out of 10 required you to complete all 10 contracts, even though there weren't even 10 contracts at the time. It was just bugged again. Offspring of the Apollo required you to find and scrutinize a UESC weapon dossier with ties to Traxxas mining tech. And when found, you would then submit that to the /contract command. Starting line was similar, saying get eyes on UEID threat assessment of prior instigation. And you would then again submit that via /contract. And this last one was probably the most interesting, which said that there was a digital parasite detected and we had to expose an undercover UESC spy in the Discord using the /accuse spy command. It also specified that the snake speaks with a forked tongue and they would be asking, probing, extracting. Too specific, too formal, curiosity too convenient. Expose them. So let's run through real quick what the solutions to those contracts were, just so you get a flavor for how it worked. With the pattern recognition one, it said there was something hidden in the Discord. Basically, the server icon was a GIF that flashed the code ZIPE every 15 seconds or so. It looks like this, and as you can see, it just flashed to the word ZIPE. Maybe you pronounce it a different way, I don't know, sheepy or something. But you would do /pattern recognition and then enter ZIPE, and that would then spit a code back at you, and you'd enter that code into the /contract command, and that would give you your points. For Offspring of the Apollo, you had to go to a certain place in the UESC terminal. So if we CD to this folder, and then we open the PDF inside called V00 Zeus RG, you'd get a ton of information back, you'd get some ASCII art of the gun, and you'd also get this string, which is the string you needed to submit to the contract to get your reward. The same can be said for the starting line contract, it's just a different file. So you open that file up. For this, you get a ton of information, but if you scroll down, you'll notice some suspect looking strings on these case files. So there's this bit here, and then there's this 115 here, and then there's this stuff here, and you basically have to glue those together, and those give you a full string, which you submit for your contract. The accuse spy contract, however, was something that we didn't make any progress on at that time. So we'd found a bunch of solutions, but we couldn't submit the solutions because the bot was down, right? It was stuck thinking. And so I came up with this idea. We need to give the chat more incorrect commands. So like, I'm going to do like /Pathfinder. I'm just making up some random stuff here.
No, I think it actually makes sense.
This is good. We'll just convince people that Pathfinder is a code. Everyone in chat, everyone in Twitch chat right now, do /Pathfinder and just like, let's convert the chat to just be everyone spamming Pathfinder thinking that that's a thing. So my grand theory here was that if I said /Pathfinder like this, I might be able to convince the rest of the chat to all start spamming /Pathfinder. And if they were spamming /Pathfinder, which wasn't a real command, that would take load off the bot, and it would allow us to start entering real commands while the bot load was reduced. And thankfully, chat was amazingly cooperative. They were just spamming Pathfinder like crazy very quickly. And remarkably, the plan actually worked. And I have the Discord off screen to the side here, but you'll see the results. Weapons report retrieved. It worked! Wait, it worked! Dude, we did it! We did it! We convinced enough people to type in total nonsense and it worked first time! Oh my god. Oh, I'm crying. That is so funny. So I managed to get a successful contract submission, so I got a couple points on the leaderboard. But then people kind of cottoned on and the whole thing broke down and the DACcening continued. Nobody could get the DAC command to work and nothing else really was working either. Now, I haven't explained yet what the DAC command was actually meant to do if it was functional. You'd basically get sent an image like this by the bot and you'd be able to save it with this very specific string. And then you'd be able to go down here and click upload DAC. And then you could drag your DAC in like that and it would log you in. When you do that, it would then say 1 here because a user had logged in. And we just needed 2,000 people to all be logged in at the same time. But because nobody could get their DAC from the command, this stayed around 50 to 100. The most we got to was 120. So after a few hours of the DACcening and the DACs just not working, this happened.
Restricted feed chats just frozen. It's not moving.
Wait, really?
Oh my god. It's broken.
Oh, wait.
Look at the react. Oh.
Wait! Excess illicit activity detected. What? All participants subject to punishment?
Violations, unsanctioned digital gathering.
Chat, we're all enemies of the state now?
We're done.
Oh, man.
We're done.
The budget lawyers are knocking down the door right now.
So the UESC, whose server we were technically infiltrating, were not happy with us, and they tweeted out this warning, and they locked down the Discord server. They changed its icon, and they prevented anybody from typing any further. Now, I tweeted about this saying that this was just really funny, and I may or may not have added a violation for unauthorized Pathfinder usage. And in response to my tweet about this, I also then just followed up saying, @Mida, sorry for the subversion, please forgive. Because I didn't really have my head in the game, right? Like, I thought that Mida would be upset with subversion, but it was actually the UESC who were the ones that were mad about everything here. But they responded to me and they said, never apologize for disruption. So I was like, okay, I've got an opportunity to play along here a little bit. And I love doing stuff like this. So I was like, how can I respond in a way that spells out MIDA with the first letter of each word? Like the way that Mida themselves do that same sort of stuff. And this is what I was considering. I was thinking about writing my insurgents disrupts accordingly, but I wasn't sure if I liked the word insurgents. And then while I was kind of debating it on stream, they tweeted me again and they just said, insurgents. And so I responded and I said, modification ingested, diction augmented. And then I responded back and I said, yeah, my insurgents disrupts accordingly. So we were just playing around with the fact that we were participating in this illegal gathering, right? This mass grouping, but that's exactly what Mida likes. So we were like, okay, we'll just come back whenever the server comes back on. The problem was nobody could get their DACs. And so hours and hours passed and slowly but surely, one by one, people did start getting them, but it was really painfully slow. This is several hours later and we're at 1,000 plus. And at this point, it started to go up a little faster, but then it got to 1,125 and it stopped. We then got this message from the Mida account. SAT cracked, realign is recharge, prep for final signal disrupt, window shuts equals push. And we noticed that nobody new was logging in and anyone that signed out was no longer able to sign in down in the corner. This was because the satellites had gone into a realignment stage. I don't have a great screenshot for this, but basically the satellites, these white boxes, they lined up and the drop box in the bottom right where you could upload your DAC, it said crit threshold met, realign in progress, 12-hour window. So people assumed the 12-hour window would mean that we just needed to come back in 12 hours and then make a final push, and that might be the end of the ARG. Seeing as it said final signal disrupt, that felt like it made sense. So we came back 12 hours later, and nothing happened apart from the fact that that 12-hour window it mentioned went down to a 6-hour window now, even though we just waited 12 hours. So we'd done 12, and now it had added a new 6 on top. We were confused about this, but Mida tweeted that the realigned progress was progressing and that it was all as planned, and can't hide signal forever. So it seemed like we were just going to have to wait another 6 hours, and then maybe we were going to have to wait half of that again, so another 3 hours, and then another 1.5, etc. In the meantime, the Marathon the Game account gave us this new teaser. Unlike some of the previous Marathon posts, this one had a minus sign in it, and it had this image. And straight away, I noticed that some of the colors were different between these purples, like that purple was different to this purple. So I cranked the image, I really cranked the hog, and I saw that it had a secret Mida logo in it. That wasn't all that was found in the image though. There's 3 dots here, and then 2 dots here, and then 1 dot there. So if that means that this is our sort of first column or group, this is our second, and this is our third, then maybe that means we need to rotate it. So if you go in Photoshop, you can rotate it like this, and that would mean that top to bottom, it's now 1, 2, 3. So with the rotation done and the colors separated out, like I said, you can see that there are dots in these patterns on each group. And this looks very similar to MIDI, because you've got quantized units of time, and each of these could be a note on a keyboard. Also, on a keyboard or a piano, you have groups of 3 black notes, that's the red lines here, and then 2 black notes, and then 3 black notes, and then 2 black notes, etc. So the pattern that we were seeing here seemed to line up with what you'd see on a keyboard. This meant we could go into free MIDI software like this and program in all the dots that we saw, lining it up. So for example, this first pink dot is above one of the black keys in a group of 2 black keys. And so you'd look at the 2 black keys here and then put it above. And this is what it sounds like when played. Which is Vivaldi. You might recognize it. It's from his 4 Seasons. That was just one of the 3 groups though. There were 3 groups in total. Protostar in my chat is a music producer, and he made a kind of cleaned up version. He didn't move any of the timing of the notes, but he just put a nice effect on to make it sound better. So this is his version of that same piece. Then we had Gymnopédie. So you can hear the timing is really out compared to what you'd expect. And this was the third one, which is Air on a G String by Bach. So very weirdly drawn out, but again, recognizably that song. So in order, top to bottom, we had Vivaldi's 4 Seasons, we had Satie's Gymnopédie, and we had Bach's Air on a G String. So naturally, we started thinking, well, if they're so offset from the originals, what if we listen to the original and then find the offset from there to these new Bungie versions? And so I put them into Premiere and I started listening to both versions at the same time, the actual real one and the Bungie one. And it sounds like this. And one thing led to another, and that led to this. You still with me here, chat? You vibing tonight, people? Energy levels good? Who needs water in the crowd? We feeling good here, chat? And then we hear what the real professionals, the real professional can do. Hey! Woo! Dude! Yeah. That went on for about half an hour. And then eventually the Discord server came back online. So we were able to type in the Discord again, and the bot was still kind of not working, as you can see there, but we were able to slip a command through or two. And so we decided to try and do some contracts, right? And there was that one contract we hadn't done yet, which was the spy contract. So I recommended that everybody pick a user at random from the list of users in the Discord and just take a look at their profile, see if they seemed sus, and crucially, go to their message history and just try and get an idea of if they looked like a spy or not. And eventually, an account called Wooner found this account called Unnoticed Eyes Secretly Collect. And when we searched their message history, we discovered not only that they looked extremely sus, saying things like, "Who wants T9 cheeseburger?" and then :yum, but they'd also, earlier on, when we were all spamming Pathfinder, they'd typed Pathfinder as well. So they'd done that to try and blend in with the crowd, which was so funny because that means that /Pathfinder is literally now canonized in Marathon lore. Like, someone in the Marathon universe has typed that because I tried to convince chat to type it so that we could talk to the bot. So, like, this is honestly one of my favorite things that happened in this whole ARG. This was so funny. I think I elaborated on it a little bit in the stream clip here. Wait. Unknown Eyes Secretly Collect. It's UESC.
Yeah. Oh my God, it is.
Who found it?
Oh my God. Oh my God, dude.
That's clever. Okay, I
Man.
like this. Appreciate it.
So people started to get the command to work and spy accusations started to be successful. Time was still passing. And remember, while all this is going on, that 12-hour timer had turned into a new 6-hour timer. And that then turned into a 3-hour timer and then a 1.5-hour timer. And it kept on going. Mida issued a new tweet, which was this, saying discordant action continues. DACs in play. Fresh DAC new you. Rerun is go. And that indicated to us that on the server, we needed to do a bunch more pathfinding, but also a bunch more /DACing, which presumably when the timer ended would actually work to upload to the TrackStat site. The problem was, once the timer did finally get to 0, it was 4 a.m. in the UK, and nothing happened. The problem was, when we tried to upload our DACs, we would just get this red X you can see in the bottom right of the screen here. And if you went into the browser console, you could see that the WebSocket connection was failing. So I had this theory at this point that we were gonna have to fictionally use the terminal to SSH into a fictional server, fix the fictional server by killing the WebSocket process there and then re-enabling it, all via the UESC command line. And then that would fix the real life server, but no progress was made here. And so, as you can see, I went to bed. And because I knew that my stream community would definitely want a central hub to discuss all things Milo losing his mind solving the ARG while I was sleeping, I just did it on stream. And we had chat open in the top left here, and this meant that when stuff did start happening, while I was snoozing still, chat started blowing up. It was around this time that the spy basically said this channel is listed as an unauthorized gathering under UEID guidelines. Disperse. The channel is evidence in an ongoing investigation. Illicit DAC IDs scrambled and local/severed per UEID mandate. Channel lockdown imminent. All subversive activity and anti-UESC propaganda herein will be catalogued. And then they closed down the channel. So they put this line and they just shut it to everybody. So this turned into the UEID comms lockdown, and we had to use new noise as the channel for discussion. And that prompted this. So because the DACs had been scrambled, we now needed Mida to give us new DACs. So that's what they did. They gave us a master DAC, which kind of acted as a universal DAC, so that despite the fact that nobody could get their own DACs on the Discord because it had been so buggy, because the bot had been struggling so much, now absolutely everyone had a DAC of their own. And so while I was snoozing here, people like, Milo, rise and shine, it's time to go. We're trying to get to 2,000. We've got like 200 left. And I have to say, I really appreciate you guys thinking of me here. Like, knowing that I've done so much work and I'm gonna miss something, and knowing that I would really hate that and be upset about it. It was really nice to see all this sentiment, like in hindsight, when I wasn't even conscious at the time. And then they finally hit 2,000, and you can see there's a 2-minute timer. and they're reacting to it. We have to align, but everyone's like, what do we do? Like, where's our streamer to yell at us to tell us which direction we need to put it in? Thankfully, there were a bunch of other streamers online. There was the Discord that was also coordinating its own efforts. Like, there were lots of folks that were on the case. Glad was one of them. He was kind of helping Sherpa the masses a little bit. And so this is what the page looked like. Every 2 minutes, as you can see up here, you'd get a reset to these positions of the satellites. And you had this box in the corner, which would allow you to adjust the position of the satellite you'd selected, either forwards or backwards one, and you'd then go on a 30-second cooldown. This meant that if you wanted the middle ring, which was labeled core now, to go to a higher number, you would just have to do that and then hope that all the other people that were also logged in would also click in the same direction with you. So it's kind of like Twitch plays satellite alignment. The center ring was called core, the middle ring was called transit, and the outer ring was called frontier. And if you recall from the solution of this puzzle, we already had an unused code of +714 and then frontier. So we had an obvious thing to use that with now. That's exactly what you can see on this here. So this is the frontier ring, the outer ring, and this number on the right-hand side is the 714 that we need to get to. But the question is, what do the other rings need to be at, right? What were those numbers? Maybe they were from some of the other teasers that we'd had, which we didn't understand yet, or maybe they were all part of this same puzzle that we had to deduce. After several hours of trying, chat realized that you basically have to take the 714 of the outer frontier ring, draw a line between that and this central Traxxas logo, and then put the satellite on core and the satellite on transit in that line. So they all lined up to point to Traxxas. This was obviously difficult because if even a few people wanted to try and throw it all off, they could spam their buttons and you'd get knocked off 714, or you'd get knocked in the wrong direction here, and it would reset every 2 minutes. So it really needed a lot of coordination. After a while, and after other folks like Scarrow and Bog helped join the fray to sort of conduct the masses here, while I was still sleeping, they got their successful alignment on Frontier +714, and that unlocked this page. So this is the same Traxxas global site from before, except there's a whole load of new entries here that are now lit up. And if we just click on a couple of them to show you what we're looking at, let's see, Diamond Drill. Let's use that as an example. So this is an advert. You see it says some assistance can help, Cyrus can solve. Any task, any challenge, any time. And it's got a barcode on the side. That's the same for all of these new entries that opened up. They were all adverts. Here's another one, Face Feeder, Carbonation Liquid Can. Sounds very appetizing. And Scarrow realized that when you clicked on these, they all had a unique ID up here. And in the case of the multi-arm excavator, it said L3 in the middle. And then if you compared that to all of the individual satellites that you can see dotted around the sat map here, you can actually find this one, which has that same call sign, L3. The only other one that, as far as I'm aware, lines up with a call sign on the sat map is this one. So it's Space Cargo Shuttle, its call sign is V4, and that lines up with this on the outer frontier ring, Traxsat V4. So with this unusual link in mind, it was also discovered that this barcode here could, in theory, connect to another barcode. So if we open another ad here, you can see that this ad has a barcode on the right, and if we join these together, it's a little fiddly, but we can do it. There we go. It says transit 490. If you connect a different right-hand side of this, it'll give you a different number. Like it's the L3 specifically that tells you it's 490. And so seeing as this L3 satellite was present on the sat map, and seeing as this middle row of the sat map is literally called the transit row, right? Whereas this is the frontier and this is core, like I said before, it would make sense to try inputting transit 490 and then lining up frontier and core, just like we did with the frontier number a moment ago. So they were all in a line. As soon as we did that, we got this message posted in the classified intercepts channel, which had been in the Discord from the very beginning, but had just been empty. And if you copy this message into a notepad like this, and then you count the number of X's in a column, you can see, okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then there's none here, so we're just going to put a dot. Then we've got 8. We've got 6. None again, so we're going to put another dot. And then 6, and then 9. And I'm not going to go through the entire rest of the message here, but I'll just show you it with this little string. If you copy these and you paste them into a simple decimal to ASCII converter, it will spit out something which looks like it might be the start of a word. And if you do it with the full message, the output that you get is this: override controls without leaving traces. So we got a classified intercept and we got this clue, and these sounded suspiciously like some of the ads that we'd seen here. So these two, Virtual Reality Training Suite and Smart Sensor, which I'm going to open up for you now. There you go. That's got override controls, and this has without leaving traces. So once again, let's put those together. That gives us transit -978. So while I continued to sleep, everybody started putting in transit -978 and lining it up in a straight line with the Traxxas logo. It was at this point that Mida tweeted, "Expect us, multi-chan, signal inbound." And moments later on Twitter, we got this video posted. So the corporate skies and the satellite present and the message here were obvious links to the puzzle that we were currently working on, but we weren't sure if there was more hidden in this message. Interestingly, they also posted on multiple channels, which is what they were saying with multi-chan, and the TikTok version was a little different to the other platforms because originally they accidentally left in like an auto-added song and then they removed it and then they reposted it and they added this caption, which was pretty funny, saying TikTok interference removed, signal cleared, message clean. And people noticed that the black bars and the noise in this video were actually different to the one on the other platforms. And it was at this point that I woke up.
It's time. Wait, what? I missed stuff? No. Oh.
While I was waking up, the Discord and the various chats had started to kind of hyperfixate on this idea that this guy called Tom was an insider or something that knew everything about the ARG just because he'd been posting pretty sharp ideas in Discord. And so Mida had to tweet saying, "Tom is Tom. Tom is not Mida. Community equals strength," which is a pretty funny clarification and also means that Tom is now canon in the Marathon universe. And so I got online with Scarrow and Bog and DACcening and the rest of the gang, and we started trying to figure out what the next code was going to be. As a community, both the streamers like myself with a good, I don't know, we probably had 7,000 odd people or something in the stream, and then the Discord with another 7,000 odd people in it, we went through a lot of different ideas, trying to figure out what we needed to set core, frontier, and transit to in order to get the output that we were looking for. And at one point, my chat informed me that you could see the origin points of the satellites when they reset every 2 minutes in the console here. So I started looking for those origin points and marking them down to get a feel for how that worked. We also then started looking into fonts like this because we thought maybe the redactions here, the black bars here, were actually a weird font of letters that we had to read, and that might tell us the code that we needed. But these were paid fonts, and the Mida account quickly tweeted out, "If something cost nothing, something has value," which at the time we weren't fully aware of, but now in hindsight probably just means don't spend your money on the font. You don't need it. So next we got another classified intercept, which looked like this. So copying it into a notepad. Scarrow and I both thought it looked like binary, 01010100, etc. And translating that from binary to regular text, we got this message just written backwards. The problem was we didn't really know what to do with that. Like, okay, offset?
Wait, what?
So we did try a variety of ideas, but both our stream chats and our group call and the Discord kept on coming up short. So we kept trying other ideas, and Mida just started getting more and more agitated. So first they gave us a hint. Origin shifts, right? So that's the origin location of the satellites when they spawn in every 2 minutes. Those shift randomly. The coordinates, so that's the shift that we were applying in this module here, ±1, those transform, and then they say adjust from Origin. But we were so full of a million different ideas at this point that we were still getting flustered by all this because we didn't have a core number. Then, moments later, Mida tweeted this, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus. So we started thinking about inverting things and flipping plus signs to minus signs and stuff like that. And basically, we would try a bunch of ideas for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then Mida would be like, Jesus Christ, these bozos are useless. And they would tweet Transit Core Frontier all offset, for example, to try and sort of nudge us in the right direction. And then we'd be like, oh, maybe we don't need to offset one of them. And they'd be like, no, offset, offset, offset. And then, hilariously, Mida quote tweeted this puzzle, right? The music puzzle that we'd had before. And they just pasted the same thing again. Like they were just yelling at us, this. So we went back and we thought, okay, what could those musicians mean? Like, what do the numbers mean, Mason? And we tried a bunch of ideas. And then they tweeted again. And it was like, oh my God, these guys are crashing out right now. Mida hates us. But this third post of the music was actually different. So if you crank the levels in Photoshop all the way up, you actually end up finding these symbols hidden in it. So you can see it's -413 and then core, telling us that this is the core ring and we need to set it to -413. But why is this the solution, right? Well, if we're reading top to bottom here, 413, this is our Vivaldi. That's from the Four Seasons. So 4 seasons, 4 makes sense. But where does the 1 and the 3 come from? Well, this was Gymnopédie, but the full name of the track, as you can see, is Gymnopédie number 1. And similarly, we've been talking about air on a G string. That's air is from Orchestral Suite number 3. So that's our 4, our 1, and our 3. And the minus sign, if you want to know where that came from, was because in the original Marathon tweet, they added the minus there. So we'd had the 413 the whole time, but we just didn't realize. So we've got the Frontier offset of +714 from the beginning. We've got the -413 for core, which we've just got, and Transit has -978, which we did the step before. And so we double checked our understanding, and then we ran the numbers, and this is what happened. Yeah. They say origin shifts, coordinates transform, adjust from origin. Yeah. They did literally say that. So let's do that. Yeah. So on the next reset, I will read out the origin numbers.
Yep.
And then we will shift by 413, 978, and the other thing. Yeah?
Yep, lock in. This
okay,
is it.
Lock in, gamers. The satellite array is departing shortly. Please fasten your seatbelts.
It was, wait, -978. Yeah, -978.
Yep.
And core is -413.
Correct. Yep. I'm ready, Scarrow. I'm reading you your numbers momentarily.
Yep, go for it. Okay.
All right. Reading shortly here. 753.
Okay.
1069.
Nice.
-470.
Okay. Okay, Frontiers is 244. Transit is 91. Core is 340.
All right, chat. Here we go. Lock in, everyone. You need to be the most locked in you've ever been. Oh, pending transmission incoming. Woo! Woo! Yep. That's the Marathon teaser. It was insane. Like, as a reveal, I've never experienced something like this before in my life. It was so bonkers. If you want to watch my full reaction, like, I'll link it down below. But for now, we're going to focus on some of the other ARG steps that happened after this because there was still more. So while the internet were losing their collective minds over this cat, I was going to this website that had been tweeted out by that Fletcher guy a couple of days ago because he got a Marathon package from Bungie and one of the things in it had escapewillmake.me written on this metal card. So we went to escapeWillMake.me, which had been down earlier in the week, and it now looked like this, where you could input an ID, and then you could initiate consciousness link and click through, and my webcam's not working right now, so it's not going to work, but it would scan your face, and then if you hit continue here, it would go through to this screen, and you'd get a little rectangle with a number out of 100. We quickly realized that this was a puzzle, so myself, Scarrow, and Bog jumped into a group Figma session and spent 5 hours collecting community images, and we created this out of 100 different pieces. And bear in mind, some of these look like this. Like, it's an awful puzzle to have to try and do, to connect these up perfectly, but we did as best we could and ended up with this beautiful creation. And so we all tweeted it out, obviously. We took our own screenshots, and Joseph Cross tweeted out my screenshot of it, so we knew that that was puzzle complete. And for the record, if you don't know who this is the franchise art director for Marathon at Bungie. At the same time, do you remember this that we were sort of cooking up before? That got turned by Protostar into this. What is this, Proto? Wait, what is this? Milo on the beat. No nonsense. Crank the hog. This is your no nonsense beat. Oh my god. Crank the hog. Crank the hog. Yeah, so that happened. And in the description of this Save the Date trailer that we unlocked, we found all this text. You'll notice that this says Farsight 7, which happens to be the hidden folder that we'd found before in the terminal. There's also this hardware UUID here, and this is something that we're undoubtedly going to have to submit as a contract assignment. And there may or may not be some other info in here that's relevant, such as encryption level 3, clearance alpha, maybe, stuff like that. So one of those bits of hidden stuff comes in the form of the site here, the Escape Will Make Me site. So if we refresh this and we just put in a random name, let's do, just for funsies, Durandal. Why not, right? And then it gives you a bunch of text down here. Humanity not found, proceed anyway. Here we go. So we're scrolling along, and this time round, we've got the lone and level sands stretch far beyond sight as part of the message. And that is a reference to the Ozymandias poem, right? The lone and level sands. So it's interesting that we're getting more Ozymandias references, but this time we're getting it on this page. So that's cool. But we've got a lot of loose ends, right? So let's go through a couple of those now. On the UESC site, it shows us all of the commands that we can run here. And one of them is SSH IP password. The problem is, we haven't ever used this, but we've used all the other commands. Why would we need to connect to a remote server? There's actually a very good answer for this. So if we go back to this Traxxas Connect chat log and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that they're talking about need to access SSH root, and then they provide an IP for a quarterly security audit. So they've literally provided us with an SSH and an IP here, and that means that in theory, we should be able to go to SSH IP like this, and then type in some kind of password, don't know what the password is, hit return, and get in to see their security audit and maybe see some other stuff as well. Another loose end was this snake video. We didn't really ever end up using this for anything, so we still need to look into the snake. Maybe it's just a reference to the fact that the spy speaks with a forked tongue, so it could just be that. There's also this whole PDF that we've not really made any use of just yet. There's a ton of stuff on Sekaguchi that we've not used yet. There's a lot of locked stuff in there. Similarly, on the UESC site, there's this version of the site before we log into the terminal. We haven't got any login there yet. The Corporate Skies post, we didn't really get any data from. And there's also the banner of MIDA here. So this stuff looks very similar to this that we saw in 2023 in a MIDA Zine with all these little stick figures again, but we haven't extracted any info from this yet, so there might be some more stuff here. and there's going to be more contracts on the Discord, and Bungie have said that this game's going to have a lot of ARG type situations involved, so it could be that there's just another ARG coming where some of this stuff will end up being used. And if they're not used for anything in the future, I'm just going to always be left wondering, like, if this is the original Vivaldi, right? And then we overlay the Bungie version, why did they offset their beats in such a weird way? Like, it's sort of shifted and then it drifts, but then the other ones don't drift as much, or they don't drift in the same way. I want answers to these things. So fingers crossed we get those answers, but for the time being, that is my comprehensive recap of how we unlocked the Marathon gameplay teaser from the Marathon ARG in 2025. If you found this recap useful, then please drop a like on the video. Consider subscribing so you don't miss the future Marathon videos I'm going to be making, especially if there are future ARGs, then this is going to be a great way for us to stay in contact and solve those codes. And if you want to see more Marathon stuff from me, I've got some Marathon right here for you to click through to. So I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. And if you've got any mates that are curious how this ARG worked, maybe share this video with them. And then that way they can be caught up too, and they can help problem solve with us next time. All right. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you on that video.